Maniacs, welcome back to the channel. Your local bedhead here. We are going to be diving into another video. This is going to be by Slapped Ham, and we haven't reacted to this guy in a while, but I figured, you know what? The new Conjuring movie's coming out. I don't know jack diddly shit about the case. I do not. I looked up a little bit just to make sure, like, if it wasn't a case I had already heard of. It was not the haunting in Connecticut. It wasn't anything like that. It's called the Smurl case, and it takes place in Pennsylvania. I truly do not know anything about this. I really don't. So I figured what would be a good way to kind of get more informed would be to watch a video that is telling the ghost stories of what this family had encountered. If you like this type of content, want to see this content continue, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Of course, go support the original video because without that, there would be no reaction. So make sure you go support the original video, show them a lot of love, and let's go ahead and dive into this video so I can be more informed about what's to come. I should probably go ahead and point out, in case you're new around here, that I'm very hesitant to believe in most of the cases that the Warrens have investigated. After watching many videos, going over a lot of information that I just was not aware of around, since after I watched the first Conjuring film, at that point I was a massive fan of the Warrens, but the more I've learned, the more I'm just kind of not really as big of a fan as I used to be. And it's beginning to seem like more and more people are kind of beginning to see things that they weren't seeing to begin with. So, yeah. But we're going to go ahead and at least hear what this family apparently encountered. So, here we go.
The Smurl family haunting is the story of a Pennsylvania house that was said to be inhabited by demons. In August 1973, the Smurl family moved into a double block house on Chase Street in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. Less than a year later, they began to experience misfortunes that they attributed to the presence of malevolent spirits. The attacks continued for over a decade until they finally moved out of the house in 1987. Before they left, the Smurl's tale.
So they were there from, I think it said 1973 all the way to 1980. Let's go ahead and go back a little bit. So they were there for about 14 years before they finally got out of there. Insane. So 14 years of supposedly dealing with malevolent spirits. Interesting. I wonder what was the final push.
Before they left, the Smurl's tale gained the attention of demonologists, clergy, skeptics, paranormal investigators, reporters, and supernatural enthusiasts across the United States. This is The Devil in Pennsylvania, unveiling the Smurl family haunting.
All right.
From the Amityville Horror House to the Winchester Mansion, people have long been thrilled by frightening and gruesome tales of haunted homes. Stories of demons in attics and spiritual attacks conjure up visions of dark, broken, and boarded-up windows, scary sounds, and lives spinning out of control. In the mid-1980s, just a few miles southwest of Scranton, Pennsylvania, the Smurl's house in West Pittston joined the list of notorious targets for demonic spirits, drew the curious to Chase Street, and became a media spectacle. Today, people still...
You got Ed and Lorraine Warren standing possibly on the front porch answering questions.
Curious to Chase Street, and became a media spectacle.
Look at this guy doing the dad stance. I don't know, he just got the dad stance down, like that stance where dads stand with their arms crossed and their legs are spread.
Today, people still talk about the strange period in the neighborhood's history, and kids sometimes visit the Smurl's house after dark, hoping for a spooky encounter. The story begins in 1973, when the Smurls arrived in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. After Hurricane Agnes flooded their home in the nearby town of Wilkes-Barre, the Smurl family moved to a fixer-upper duplex on 330 Chase Street. Jack, Janet, and their 4 daughters lived on one side of the house, while the children's grandparents, John and Mary, lived on the other side. As the Smurls worked to upgrade the property, their troubles began. At first, the family attributed the odd noises they heard to the house's age. But soon, they felt a sense of
Smart. Smart. You don't hear that often from owners.
Malice.
It's an old house. No, they immediately go to the paranormal. At least investigators do. The investigators go to the paranormal immediately, and then they kind of ride with it. Like, especially back then where you could have a ghost in here. You could have a demonic entity in here. It's just a couple of creaks. That's a sign. That's a sign.
as odd, vexing events started happening while they were at home. Tools disappeared as they worked, stains bled through fresh paint, and unplugged appliances would allegedly turn on and off. Terrible, sulfurous odors wafted through the house, but plumbers couldn't find any issues with the pipes. Despite these aggravations, the Smurls made every effort to create a happy abode, and for a while, life was good. Jack got a promotion at work and coached his daughter's softball team. Janet
Nice.
volunteered at the local high school. The daughters were doing well, the grandparents were content, and everyone was in good health. As time went on, the Smurls family ordeal took a chilling turn for the worse. Their once peaceful home began to feel as though it was harboring a malevolent presence, and the family found themselves besieged by a relentless series of unsettling events. Mary and Janet in particular began experiencing disturbing encounters with what they believed were phantom imposters. These eerie doppelgangers would assume the identities of the two women and maliciously sow discord within the family. Mary reported hearing the phantom Janet shouting,
Yeah, we're about to get into a creepy part. Whatever it was about to say was going to creep me out. Okay, so like doppelganger stuff fascinates me beyond belief. Apparently, if you ever encounter a doppelganger, especially if it's yourself, if you see yourself and you know for a fact it's not like a reflection or anything and it's just actually you, apparently that means death is coming your way. It's a superstitious, legend, but like that's apparently what it means. I swear I had seen one day. I swear. Either that or I'm crazy. But I truthfully thought I had seen my friend. Now, I believe in the paranormal. So I'm not afraid to go ahead and say that I truly believe I saw my friend when I know for a fact she was nowhere near. And I remember I called her right after. And I'm like, where are you right now? Are you trying to pull a prank? And she said she was at home, which is like 15 minutes away. So I'm like, okay, then that wasn't you. But it looked exactly like you. And it was standing by your mom's house and it was smiling at me. I for sure thought it was her, and I was completely wrong. It freaked me out. I genuinely, I walked around the abandoned house at the time and I thought I was gonna like jump scare her and like tell her like, oh dude, nice try. Nope, wasn't even there. It was pretty surreal moment, and I try to debunk myself all the time and like what could that have been, and I still can't do it. I still can't. So
discord within the family. Mary reported hearing the phantom Janet shouting curses, while her own imposter would call out Janet's name, creating an atmosphere of dread and confusion.
If they utilize that in the next movie, like hearing the names being called like downstairs, I mean, you could do a lot with that concept in a film.
According to their reports, swirling areas of darkness began to drift through the hallways, further deepening their sense of foreboding. The alleged spirits appeared increasingly intent on causing serious harm, and tragedy struck when Jack's mother suffered a heart attack amidst the escalating turmoil. The story then took a lurid and unsettling turn when Janet claimed to have been touched by a ghost during the early morning hours while sleeping beside her husband.
So when it comes to things like heart attacks, strokes, for older people in these kind of stories, I don't necessarily lean towards the paranormal automatically because, at a certain age, I mean, it becomes more common and that people start experiencing things like that. So I'm not just going to jump to that conclusion immediately. I know a lot of people like to make it a coincidental thing. Like they'll be like, oh, what are the odds that she had a heart attack during the time of this haunting going on? It's like, don't necessarily blame it on the spirits involved just yet. But they like to do that to add to the whole seriousness of their situation with the haunting and how it's all malevolent and everything's evil. So if someone had a heart attack, then they could be like, yeah, it has to be evil because why would it cause a heart attack? And yeah, they like to do that.
Jack was roused from his sleep by eerie whispers and was horrified to witness a dark figure crawling near his wife's leg while the mattress trembled under the influence of unseen forces. The alleged demonic attacks on the Smurl family escalated into physically dangerous encounters. A light fixture crashed down from the ceiling, tragically injuring one of their daughters. According to their accounts, a demon allegedly threw another daughter down the stairs and violently hurled their 75-pound German Shepherd against a wall.
Jesus!
Janet claimed that
Are we going to see that in the movie? You see a German Shepherd get swung? It would probably throw it right out a window or something instead of a wall.
Visible entity
because, Hollywood
lifted her off the ground and held her suspended in midair before forcefully flinging her back into the room. Most nights became a nightmarish symphony of disturbing sounds, with grunting pigs and ear-splitting otherworldly howls echoing through their home. The terror was not confined to the family, as even neighbors reported hearing screams emanating from the house when the Smurls were absent. Of all the family...
That's interesting. Okay. Look, when it comes to these family hauntings, look, you gotta go into it with a grain of salt. You always do. I think it's very important you do. I want to be open-minded because I want to hear them out. I've never seen an interview with the Smurls. To my knowledge, I don't think I have. I've seen the family with the haunting in Connecticut. They didn't seem too honest. They seemed like their stories were out of whack. These people, I just don't know yet. So going into this story, open-minded, accepting what they're saying. I'm going to go ahead and take their word for it for now, but until I start seeing interviews and the way they've handled themselves, that's when I start, thinking about other possibilities too. But if the neighbors were also hearing the screams while they know that nobody was home, that's pretty interesting. Okay, I'll give it that. That's interesting.
Members, it appeared that Jack bore the brunt of these harrowing experiences. He recounted a particularly disturbing encounter where a malevolent specter allegedly bit his ear. Even more distressing, he claimed that a succubus allegedly assaulted him while he innocently watched television. In another terrifying episode, Jack said that a demon brought him to his knees, forcibly dragged him across the floor, and subjected him to a severe beating while he desperately clung to the rosary for protection.
Well, I don't know how to explain that. That was a giant list of a bunch of shit that would traumatize anybody. If it ever did happen, I don't know, obviously. So a succubus took advantage of him while he was watching TV innocently. Then a demon brought him to his knees and subjected him to a beating of a lifetime while he held a rosary. I really don't have no words for that. All I can say is that is some pretty serious accusations.
By January 1986, the Smurl family found themselves in a state of desperation. They had turned to the Catholic Church for assistance, seeking relief from the relentless paranormal torment that had plagued their lives. However, the diocese expressed reluctance to intervene, citing a need for more concrete evidence.
Yep.
In their quest for salvation, the Smurls reached out to a renowned couple known for their expertise in dealing with the supernatural, Ed and Lorraine Warren. These demonologists, associated with the New England Society for Psychic Research, had achieved fame for their investigations into paranormal phenomena worldwide. Notably, they had delved into the notorious haunted house in Amityville, New York, and their adventures have inspired numerous works in the horror genre, including the immensely popular Conjuring movie franchise.
Which, ironically, now this story is going to be making one of the films. It's going to be the fourth movie in the Conjuring film main story.
On the Warrens' arrival in West Pittston, it didn't take long for them to assert that the Smurl home was a hotbed of abnormal spiritual activity. Ed Warren recalled feeling an eerie coldness and the presence of something sinister on his very first night at the house. As he wielded a crucifix and invoked the name of Jesus Christ, a dark form materialized, intensifying the sense of malevolence. In a statement to the Times Leader,
now, let's go ahead and ask ourselves, how often has that happened? When you've walked into a house that you personally believed was under demonic influence, pull out a crucifix and yell at the name of Jesus Christ and then watch something literally form in front of you. How often has that happened? He might be the only gosh dang person that's ever happened to, because I still don't know anybody in my personal life who has that. It's ever happened, where a spirit will literally just form itself in front of you and then show itself automatically because he said Jesus Christ. Is that crazy of me to say? I really don't feel like it is, because I really feel like if that was the case, it would be happening so much more often when someone would go in there and say the name of Jesus Christ and have faith in him. That would happen. I just don't understand that whole thing. So yeah, I'm very hesitant to trust anything Ed Warren says at this point.
Wilkes-Barre newspaper, Warren bluntly declared, quote, "The ghost, devil, demon, or whatever you call it, is in that home."
It's very powerful. It's invisible. I don't care if you want to call it a devil or a ghost or a demon. There's something in this home which has the intelligence to inflict physical and psychological harm upon this family.
While her husband prepared to confront this sinister entity, Lorraine Warren, who allegedly possessed clairvoyant and mediumistic abilities, embarked on a journey through the Smurls' home. She engaged with their daughters in an attempt to coax the spirits out into the open. After conducting various experiments, Lorraine concluded that 4 distinct psychic entities resided alongside the Smurl family. These entities included a benevolent older woman, a malevolent young girl, a man who had met a tragic end within the house, and a poltergeist that exercised control over the others. The Warrens held the belief that the head demon orchestrated the chaos caused by the other spirits, with the intention of tearing the family apart. Ed proposed that over time the demon had steadily amassed power since the Smurls moved in, employing cunning tactics to erode the family's mental and physical well-being. Although the entity remained intangible, it posed a grave threat to the Smurls' overall safety and tranquility. Ed Warren claimed to possess audio recordings of the demon's disturbing activities within the house. Furthermore, he reported witnessing items in the Smurl's bedroom mysteriously moving across the bureau and falling to the floor, seemingly untouched by human hands. Time and again, invoking the name of Jesus Christ, Ed commanded the malevolent spirits to depart from the Smurl's home. But their relentless presence defied his efforts. During this tumultuous period, the clergy in Scranton initially approached the Smurls' claims with uncertainty, hesitant to attribute the disturbances to demonic forces. However, as the gravity of the Smurls' situation became increasingly evident, the clergy began to take their plight more seriously. Reverend Gerald Mullally, the Chancellor of the Diocese of Scranton, expressed sympathy and understanding toward the Smurls, although he refrained from making definitive statements about the cause of the disturbances. In an effort to investigate further, he enlisted the assistance of Reverend Alphonsus Trebold, a theology professor at New York St. Bonaventure University. However, Trebold did not make the journey to visit the afflicted family. Nevertheless, several local priests from the parish began to visit the Smurls' home, performing blessings and prayers. Interestingly, none of these clergymen reported experiencing anything out of the ordinary during their time on the property. In a particularly bold move,
Interesting. So these people who would go and do blessings on the house, for some odd reason, never experienced what Ed Warren had experienced when he would call out the name of Jesus Christ in that house. Interesting.
priest who hoped to witness.
And yes, I do take that into consideration quite a bit. I know there's going to be people in the comment section saying you got to lay off the Warrens. It's like, that's suspicious to me. That's odd to me that that's happening.
Firsthand the alleged demonic forces stayed at the Smurl's home for 2 nights. To his disappointment, he didn't encounter any supernatural activity. Simultaneously, church leaders grappled with the question of whether an exorcism was warranted. The Reverend Neil J. Van Loon, then secretary to Bishop James C. Timlin, offered various speculations about the factors contributing to the Smurl's difficulties. However, the bishop refrained from making any public comments on the matter. In their quest for relief, the Smurls turned to a priest from the neighboring state of Connecticut to perform an exorcism in their home. Unfortunately, this ceremony did not yield the desired results. Janet Smurl believed that when threatened, the spirits would elude capture by fleeing to the other side of the duplex. She also harbored a belief that these malevolent entities could energetically attach themselves to the family, even when they ventured outside the house, perhaps entering the family camper in their relentless pursuit. As their desperate attempts at spiritual interventions failed to expel the alleged malevolent entities tormenting their duplex, the Smurl family made the difficult decision to go public with their harrowing saga, hoping that someone, somewhere, might offer a solution to their nightmarish predicament. It didn't take long for their story to capture the attention of the media, and the news of the haunting rapidly spread like wildfire. Soon, a curious and concerned public began to gather outside the Smurl residence, setting up camp in a surreal display of fascination and empathy. Among the many who came forward, one notable visitor was Jason Miller, the actor renowned for his
I was about to say that looks just like the fucking actor from The Exorcist.
portrayal of Father Karras in the iconic film, The Exorcist. Miller, intrigued by the unfolding events, expressed his belief that something unusual was indeed happening within the Smurl's home. However, he stopped short of categorizing it as necessarily demonic in nature. The story's growing notoriety drew
So he just pretty much said he finds it fascinating, and he says there potentially could be something going on. I mean, it's just an actor. He was in a movie. He doesn't really probably understand a whole lot, but he probably just did it on a whim, walked over there and was like, hey, this is interesting stuff. Interesting. Had no idea.
attention of various news outlets, both large and small. Media giants such as CNN and CBS, along with the New York Post and numerous smaller stations in New York and Philadelphia, dispatched reporters and camera crews to West Pittston to cover the unfolding supernatural drama. Before long, the Smurl family found themselves thrust into the spotlight, becoming the reluctant stars of a media circus that unfolded in three-ring fashion, with their haunting story at its center. While the Smurls had garnered the support and belief of many seekers of supernatural truth, they also faced a considerable number of skeptics and doubters.
Well, yeah. I mean, even now when I'm listening to this and I'm being told that many different people went to the house to give it blessings and they're not experiencing anything and they're questioning it, that makes me really question it. It's like, how is Ed Warren getting his responses, but these guys aren't? It absolutely makes no logical sense to me.
These skeptics ranged from local newspaper columnists to experts well-versed in psychic and paranormal phenomena, and they adamantly labeled the hauntings as nothing more than a hoax. Paul Kurtz, at the time serving as the chairman of the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal and a professor of philosophy at the State University of New York, cast doubt on the Smurls' credibility. He argued philosophy at the State University of New York cast doubt on.
But scientists like Kurt and Stephen Kaplan, PhD, director of the Parapsychology Institute of America in Queens, New York, have called Warren a fraud, specifically Warren a fraud. Oof.
The Smurls' credibility. He argued that the family's accounts lacked objectivity and credibility, going so far as to assert that the Warrens, who were assisting the Smurls, were non-credentialed outsiders with questionable motives, rather than
Unfortunately, that's the way it comes off sometimes. Is like they go in there and in day one, they're already saying it's like one of the most haunted places they've ever come across. And then they go along with it. And then again, they experience everything, but anybody else who goes into the house, besides the family and them, experience nothing. There cannot be a coincidence in that. There can't be.
being part of reputable scientific or parapsychological communities. Other experts echoed this sentiment, deeming the hauntings as suspicious and seemingly contrived. In a bid to debunk the Smurl's claims, the mentalist known as the Amazing Kreskin, George Joseph Kresge Jr., embarked on a mission in October 1986. He aimed to demonstrate how physical disturbances could occur without any supernatural or demonic intervention. Kreskin used psychological tricks to illustrate to news reporters how people could be convinced that seemingly violent accidents had supernatural origins, when, in reality, they were rooted in mundane causes. Kurtz went further, suggesting that the Smurls might benefit from psychiatric assistance.
Sorry, I'm going to read this real quick. On an ABC affiliate television show in Buffalo, while I debated her via telephone, Mrs. Smurl complained that she had called the CSICOP offices at last year and that they advised her to have members of her family visit a psychiatrist and that perhaps the family had been watching too many late-night horror movies. Although this sounds like good advice, we have no record of having received such a call. We do receive scores of such calls every year, but because our resources are limited, we cannot investigate all of them. I see. So there could be a possibility she did call, or there might not be a possibility. It seems like she might have actually called, and this actually does seem like something that someone would say. Like, you might want to go ahead and just get your family, just talk to somebody and get it off your chest, and maybe they'll tell you what's really going on here. And then, of course, the Warrens doing what they do, coming into a building, and then it starts saying that there are demons here, might make the family even more paranoid and even more scared, and does not help with their paranoia at all. So they'll start seeing things and they'll start hearing things and start freaking out. The Warrens, when they go into a place, the activity escalates, but only with the family. Only with the family does it escalate, because they're psychologically struggling after being told what they were told by the Warrens. They're scared. They're horrified. They wanted help. They wanted a reassurance if this is really paranormal, or is this just something that's all in our heads. And then with people like the Warrens who go in there, they're already shoving demonic forces down your throat. And now you're mentally going to believe that because you are just too clueless on anything that is either scientific or paranormal that you will believe whatever these so-called professionals tell you. Can make a very, very nasty situation, a very messy situation.
And that they were using demonology as a means to explain away the challenges in their lives. This assertion was met with staunch objection from the Smurls themselves.
In the past 2 days, 4 members of the media have witnessed unnatural happenings here, said Mrs. Smurl. They have witnessed dark shadows, scratching, and cats purring. One per son had his eye gouged. One second. In the past 2 days, 4 members of the media have witnessed unnatural happenings here, said Mrs. Smurl. They have witnessed dark shadows, scratching, and cats purring. One person had his eye gouged and required an ice pack. There must be photo evidence of this or something. There has to be something if someone almost had their eye gouged out. Asked to identify these media people, Miss Smurl refused. Of course she did. That is shady. That is shady. When she denies actually even naming these people, so now we can't even question him on what happened. Now we have no idea. Later, Miss Smurl said the 6 homes in her neighborhood on Chase Street had also been affected, in addition to homes in Connecticut and New Jersey. I want to read this whole thing.
Who maintained that their experiences were witnessed by at least 30 family members and neighbors. They believed that the help being offered was not addressing the very real and distressing phenomena they
told that Paul Kurtz, a PhD of the Committee of Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal in Buffalo, New York, had offered his services. Smurl was quick to dismiss him. I don't think he is an expert. He said he is some person looking for media exposure. Smurl said he resented the fact that Kurtz had called his family the West Pittston Willies. Well, I mean, I guess he probably didn't want to invite someone who was already kind of making fun of the whole thing. I guess that makes sense. But at the same time, if this person was going to try to use scientific, he was going to have a scientific investigation of your house, that would have helped you out a lot, in my personal opinion. But I guess I can't really blame them at the same time, even knowing it does seem shady that they just turned him down outright. Yeah.
They were enduring. When the Smurls chose to make their story public, they were unprepared for the overwhelming media frenzy that would engulf them. What initially began with a glimmer of hope and excitement soon devolved into an exhausting and intrusive barrage of reporters, constantly calling their house and descending upon their doorstep at all hours. Their neighbors, too, found their lives disrupted as a parade of outsiders disrupted the normal flow of daily life. One resident, Bill Watson, vividly remembers the intensity of the situation, stating, quote, CNN was here on my porch. There was a camera crew from Germany in my driveway. There were so many people I could hardly get my car out to go to work.
Yikes.
The relentless media attention had turned their quiet neighborhood into a chaotic and unwelcome spectacle. 3 decades later, Karen Smurl, one of the family's daughters, reflected on those tumultuous times in an interview with the Pittston Progress. She revealed that the family had endured harassment, with people knocking on their house and even throwing bricks. Karen emphasized that they had never profited from the book or movie adaptations of their story, emphasizing that enduring the media scrutiny and public criticism was an ordeal that they wouldn't wish upon anyone. Overwhelmed and unable to find the relief they
I wonder who profited off that book.
sought, the Smurl family ultimately decided to escape from West Pittston in 1987. They packed their bags, bid farewell to their haunted home on Chase Street, and relocated back to Wilkes-Barre, hoping for a respite from the relentless supernatural torment.
Yeah, I'm sure it was caused by the supernatural torment. It seems like to me it was probably caused by the relentless freaking harassment they were getting from people who just did not believe in the story and would throw bricks at the house. More than likely, there are people who are superstitious and they're afraid of houses like that, so they'll even throw bricks at houses to like taunt the spirits or whatever have you. Like they will do that shit, and you know anybody living in it, throw them to the side because they don't matter. But having said all that, it seems like they, after, you can't just say all this stuff about the harassment and then try to move on. Like, oh yeah, they left the house because of the supernatural forces. No, it seemed like they left the house because they got tired of all the people just standing around there and watching them and watching them live and asking them all these questions.
Interestingly, the occupants who moved into the duplex after the Smurls' departure reported no unusual occurrences during their stay. Deborah Owens, who moved in during February 1988, stated that she had never experienced any paranormal activity while living in the duplex, a sentiment echoed by a man who resided on the other side of the house. It is speculated that the new residents may have been spared from harm because the malevolent spirits followed the Smurls to their new home. The family continued to grapple with supernatural troubles until a church-sanctioned exorcism performed in 1989 finally liberated them from their years-long persecution, bringing an end to their haunting ordeal. Following the Smurls' departure,
You know why I have a hard time believing in that whole crap about it following the family? Because when the parent family left, the hauntings had stopped. They had never experienced anything afterwards. And anybody who moved into the house after the parents did never experienced anything, and probably even questioned if the parents were even telling the truth or not. Yeah, it was like an older couple, and yeah, the woman who lived there said, "I have not seen shit happen around here." And then they normally say, "Oh, they probably left with the family." I highly doubt that.
Archer from West Pittston, doubts about the authenticity of their haunting story persisted. In 1988, Robert Curran, a staff writer for the Scrantonian Tribune, collaborated with the Warrens to write The Haunted, One Family's Nightmare, a book published by St. Martin's Press. While the book aimed to delve into the Smurl family's experiences, it faced criticism for being one-sided and lacking scientific credibility. Despite its mixed reception, The Haunted served as the basis for a 2-hour made-for-TV movie released in May of 1991, starring Sally Kirkland as Janet Smurl. The film, titled The Haunted, has since become a cult favorite, offering viewers a blend of familiar haunted house horror tropes and a gripping portrayal of the
Patrons and members, maybe I try to find this movie and do a full reaction for you guys? Maybe?
The Smurl family's escalating ordeal. The question of whether the Smurl family haunting was a genuine case of demonic activity or a quest for attention and financial gain remains shrouded in ambiguity. Only the family themselves truly know the answer. Regardless of one's belief, it is undeniable that their haunting tale captivated the public's imagination and left an indelible mark in the annals of American horror stories. When Jack Smurl passed away in June 2017, area newspapers commemorated his memory with detailed obituaries. Karen Smurl, Jack's daughter, reflected on her father's legacy, stating, quote, "We had such a hard time and nobody to turn to. Hopefully, Janet and the children will be able to live out the remainder of their lives in harmony and eventually rest in peace."
Is this the actual movie? No shit, this is the actual movie. Okay, well, we're going to have to watch that at some point. So, looking at the story, the only things that really interested me about the real story were the neighbors. Apparently, the neighbors had said that they were hearing screams when nobody was home. That's maybe something that's not, like, revolved around just the Warrens and the family. Having said what I said about how the Warrens can go into a place and just turn a family or make them think that their house is extremely haunted and have them go along with it, can very easily happen, especially when the Warrens come off like such professionals. I mean, there could be a lot of psychological play here with the family and them personally believing it's real. But then you also have moments when the family themselves are kind of denying, or even denying, the option of giving names out for people who apparently experienced something really serious there. Apparently one person had almost their eye gouged out. They didn't give the name. Why didn't you give the name? Priests, the people going into the house, and them not experience anything, that makes no sense to me. Ed is the only one that ever experienced something when bringing up the name of Jesus Christ. I don't understand it myself. You could say that, oh, the couple, they were so entwined and that they both had this supernatural element about them, or, Lorraine's abilities could have maybe gave Ed the boost or whatever. You could come up with as many theories as you want. But the reality is, if these guys couldn't get something to show their presence, then how does Ed and Lorraine do it? I don't know. And also, I know people are going to be saying, well, Ed and Lorraine aren't necessarily priests, so maybe the spirits were afraid of the priests and the people who went in there to give it a blessing. Right, but isn't Ed a Catholic? Isn't Lorraine a Catholic? A very huge Catholics? I don't really know. It makes no sense. It just makes no sense. But let me know what you think in the comments section. Is there anything I'm missing here about the story? Let me know. Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? Is it just like the other stories? Do you think that it's just a giant hoax? Let me know in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next one. Do take care.
Reactions are nothing new. However, there is one man on a mission who wants to prove the world a fakery. He used to follow all these paranormal shows. Now he's had enough. He die.